When I was in graduate school living on my own in the Vermont countryside, I decided I should learn how cars worked. I wanted to be self-reliant. I drove a 65 Plymouth Fury 2 in a dark blue-green. It had a huge expanse of windshield, which was great for scenic drives and winter sunsets, and a V8 engine, which meant nothing to me. I knew how to pump gas and check the oil and change a flat tire, but that was about it. My father had discouraged me from learning anything about the workings of the internal combustion engine. When I said I wanted to learn how cars worked, he said, "It's easy. I'll tell you everything you need to know. You put the key in the ignition and you turn it." Thanks, Dad. So I tried to take a course in auto mechanics for adults one night a week at the local high school. On the first night, the auto mechanics teacher used a word I had never understood the meaning of: gasket. I had blown one once on a friend's car driving too fast on hair-raising canyon roads in Utah, and I knew that it cost a lot to replace, and the car was never the same. Sorry. Now, at last, I was going to find out what a gasket was, so I raised my hand and asked, "What's a gasket?" The teacher, who looked like a used car salesman, defined gasket by using 3 other words that I didn't know the meaning of. Crankcase, pistons, carburetor. I'm still not sure what a gasket is. I've gotten quite a lot of mail about what a gasket is, too, by the way, and I think I understand now. Grammar has some intimidating terms, and grammarians throw them around, but you don't need to know them in order to use the language. You put the key in the ignition and you turn it. E.B. White admitted that before working on the elements of style, he was the kind of writer who did not have any exact notion of what is taking place under the hood. To understand how the language works, you have to roll up your sleeves and join the ink-stained wretches as we name the parts, being careful to define them in a way that makes them simpler instead of more complicated, and see how they work together. So, just between you and me, I suffer, and the whole body of the English language shudders when, say, a shoe salesman, trying to gain my trust, leans forward and says, "Between you and I," or when a character in a movie complains to a girl that it's just not right lumping you and I together, or when the winner of the Academy Award for Best Actress thanks a friend for getting Sally and I together. Maybe it's the heat of the moment. Maybe people think me might be okay at home, where you can afford to be a bit vulgar, but it can't possibly be right in a formal setting. This Brian Garner, who I mentioned earlier, devotes a column to the whole problem of between you and I, noting that this is a grammatical error committed almost exclusively by educated speakers trying a little too hard to sound refined, but stumbling badly. This kind of thing occurs all the time. On an old episode of The Honeymooners, Ralph Cramden has jilted Ed Norton and found another bowling partner, and he says to Norton, "We have already reserved that alley for Teddy and I." Ralph is trying to show his superiority. He's not the most articulate guy, right? Remember, humana, 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 humana? But by putting the other person first, you, Sally, Teddy, he and the others have let word order trick them into using the wrong pronoun. First, let us praise the impulse behind all these slips. The salesman and the emotionally damaged son in the movie, or the scriptwriter, and the movie star are all humbling themselves by putting another person first. Then let us gently point out that if they were not so polite, if they occasionally put themselves first, they would know they had it wrong. No one would begin a confidence with "between I and you," or complain because someone was lumping I and you together, or thank a friend for getting I and Sally together. Even Ralph Cramden would probably not say, "We have already reserved that alley for I and Teddy," but he might.